It's all quiet in the underground bunker. Doors closed, locks bolted. But the Great One isn't just resting on his laurels. He's making sure your weekend is even better by giving you his best. This is the best of Mark Levin.
I see a column in USA Today. The most beautiful part of Trump's bill is it helps him defy federal courts, by somebody named Chris Brennan. You see, the position of the ruling class establishment, and that includes the media, whenever I use those phrases, it includes the media. Their position is if you defy them and their agenda, then it is you who's defying federal courts, defying the Constitution, and threatening our country. Over the course of the weekend, starting Friday and up to this morning, we've had 3 of these federal rogue district court judges doing what they do, claiming a role in how this country's policies and agenda are to be set. They're not legal courtrooms. They don't deal with legal issues. These are policies dressed up as legal issues. And they're more than happy to participate in this because they're not subject to you, the voters. They're not subject to the consent of the governed. That is you again. They're not subject to anything. They've seized power that does not belong to them. Seized it. And the Supreme Court still has done nothing effective. Now, their term usually ends by the end of June, so we'll see if they do anything effective. They'll probably confer some form of birthright citizenship as a constitutional matter on millions of people. I don't know. We're going to find out. But I want to get to this point. This guy writes, federal judges keep issuing orders blocking some of President Trump's actions. Look how he understates it. Federal judges have issued scores and scores of orders, the vast majority of which had blunted President Trump's promised policies on which he was elected in a landslide. He says, not because there's some judicial conspiracy to thwart him, but because he clearly doesn't care about following the law. Got it? So Donald Trump's not following the law. And what's interesting is most of these judges, we don't even know what laws they're talking about that he violated. It is they who are violating immigration law. It is they who have decided what belongs on the websites and departments and agencies. It is they who've tried to block the executive branch from executive branch data. And on and on and on. He writes, in case after case, lawyers for the Trump administration play fast and loose with the facts, trying to game the system to circumvent the authority of the judiciary, a co-equal branch of government with the presidency and Congress. How have they circumvented the judiciary? Trump's Republican allies in Congress, I want to get to this, and it's important, are trying to help him hobble those judges, slipping into oxymoronically named One Big Beautiful Bill Act that passed in the U.S. House on May 22, a short provision that would hamper judges from enforcing, quote, contempt citations for failure to comply with an injunction or temporary restraining order. Now, this guy is such a low IQ partisan buffoon. He doesn't explain to his readers, all 7 of them, that Congress created these judges and these courts that he's whining about, that Congress has jurisdiction over them and can take any aspect of their jurisdiction away from them, can defund them and close them down altogether. It would be utterly and completely constitutional. That's the way it's set up. But if you read his piece and you're a typical left-wing, low-IQ moron, you'd have no idea. And to me, it's about time Congress is asserting its constitutional power. He says those are exactly the type of recent rulings that have so enraged Trump. It's not just enraging Trump. It's not just about Trump and emotions and all that. It's about the Constitution. Says the bill doesn't just stymie judges going forward, it would apply retroactively the rulings already in place. So what? The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, he writes, which passed in the House by the narrowest of margins and now goes to the Senate. So what? Now it doesn't matter. It's called majority rule, you jackass. The narrowest of margins, isn't that what they did when they destroyed our economy? With their barely majority Democrats in the Senate and the House? It's a budget package that offers tax cuts for the wealthy. See where this guy's head is? Ending Medicaid health insurance coverage for millions of low-income Americans. No, it doesn't. For illegal aliens, Americans who are both mentally and physically fit to work, requires them to work 20 long hours a week in order to get free health care. One paragraph on page 562 and 563 of the 1,116-page bill. So this guy's basically burping up what the leftists told him because you know he can't read. Not 1,116 pages. Raised alarms for reasons that have nothing to do with America's budget or safety net programs or debt. That paragraph invokes a federal rule for civil court procedures, requiring anyone seeking an injunction or temporary restraining order to block an action by the Trump administration to post a financial bond. Want to challenge Trump? Pay up, the provision said. Excuse me. It only applies to Trump. It doesn't apply to a future Democrat president. Moron. It applies, period. And what they're trying to do, and by the way, it's often done in European courts in civil cases, is that the loser pays. The defendant, the plaintiff, the petitioner, they pay. Erwin Chemerinsky, who they go to, this idiot, this dean of the Berkeley School of Law, University of California, called it unprecedented. Now, what's unprecedented are what these judges are doing to our country. Greatest impact will be in preventing enforcement of all existing temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions. If a bond has not been posted, and rarely were there bonds required, he wrote in an email, the many components of the One Big Beautiful Act received great scrutiny, but the restriction on legal challenges has received less. Loser pays, again, is a fairly common position in courts throughout the West. Again, throughout Europe. In America, we don't have it. So what the administration, I think it's in support of this, but what the Congress, the House is saying is, look, you got to put up a bond of some kind. You got to put up some money. So if you lose your case, then you have to pay for the case because you're filing case after case after case. And by the way, these aren't poor people who are filing these things. These are attorneys general of various states. These are wealthy public sector union bosses. These are all kinds of groups that are very well to do and have multi-billionaires behind them. Let's keep going. Trump isn't alone in raging against federal judges who insist that his administration does follow the law. That disdain of judicial oversight trickles down through the ranks. So he goes to the vice president who makes the point correctly. Another Ivy League trained lawyer, U.S. Solicitor General John Sawyer, refused to commit to the Trump administration obeying federal appellate court rulings when he was questioned by a pair of U.S. Supreme Court justices. I've explained that, but again, this columnist is a moron. So this columnist would have supported the Circuit Court ruling in Dred Scott and the Supreme Court upholding the Circuit Court ruling. Moron. And Plessy versus Ferguson. Moron. And Korematsu. That's right, the rounding up of 120,000 Japanese Americans. Moron. Should the government have gone along with that? Guess what? The country didn't go along with Dred Scott. We had what's called a civil war, which effectively was the only way to overturn the Supreme Court, which basically ruled you can never get rid of slavery. It's what effectively it ruled. I think the decision was 6-2, 6-3. One of them may have recused himself or they didn't have a full team of justices there. But whatever it was. That's the Trump theme running through it all. A taunt, a dare, a defiance of the law. That must certainly appeal to Trump's most fervent supporters. But it's not what the vast majority of Americans want. A Marquette Law School poll, national survey released May 22, found that 79% of 1,004 people asked said that Trump should obey federal court orders. Okay, is that how you ask the question? How about this question? Should federal district judges obey the Constitution and rule within their districts as opposed to national orders? I think we'd win that one big, Mr. Producer, don't you? So this guy's a phony, a fraud, a moron, Chris Brennan, on X, formerly known as Twitter, a USA Today columnist. What do you have, 3 brain cells to rub together? That makes you a USA Today columnist? Many people think USA Today is sort of an adult coloring book, you know, Mr. Producer? Lots of color, little substance, and to the extent there's substance, you get morons like Chris Brennan. Right now, we have a judicial tyranny growing in our country. A judicial tyranny. By the way, folks, is everybody out there today? I hope so. Hope you had a great weekend. I hope you remembered our heroes who passed away defending everything we stand for here. We stand on their shoulders. I hope you had a fantastic weekend and you have a great week. May I just suggest that early on you go over to Amazon, pre-order your copy of On Power, where I cover all this and 1,000 other things that you're going to find very compelling. The book, I agree, comes out in 2 months. We're going to launch it on Hannity's show. We're going to have a full Levin Show Sunday night on it, too. I want you to have it in front of you. I want you to see what a game changer it is if enough people have it and look at it, read it. And it's not a gossip book like this Jake Tapper book, which is shocking to me. Even conservative TV shows keep promoting this book. This guy shouldn't be making a nickel off of what he did. But I don't write books about myself. The one book we did was Rescuing Sprite, but even then it was about our doggies. But every other book I write is not a Mark Levin memoir or how-to book or what I learned going to 7-Eleven, you know, stuff like that. It's not that. These books are for you. And if you put them on your shelf, you can use them on a regular basis and so forth. But when you sit at the dinner table, and the breakfast table, on the weekends, when you're with family and friends, you can engage on a level that will be really eye-opening to them. Very, very important. And I don't do this because let's all go to college again, or those who haven't gone to college, let's go to college. No. I do it because I'm pulling together principles, philosophy, and I'm applying them to what's taking place in our country and in the world today. And these books, whether it's Liberty and Tyranny, American Marxism, and so forth, they become almost iconic. Either people quote them and give them attribution, or they take words and phrases and arguments out of them. But this is for you, our special relationship. And I tell you from a financial position, if you pre-order a book up until the day it's released, if they drop the discount to 20%, 50%, whatever it is, and then raise it to 10%, you get the best discount they offer from today to January 29th. It always gets to be a bigger and bigger discount. I'm just telling you the trade, how it works. But I know this book is for you, and I know you're going to love it. Just grab it. You can pre-order it. And by the way, Father's Day is around the corner. You can put a little note in the card to your father, your grandfather, your husband, and just tell them the book's on the way. And the minute it comes out, you will have it at your doorstep.
Mark Levin.
Making your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
So I want to have a serious discussion with you because I'm perplexed. Perplexed. What is a globalist? What is an interventionist? My friends, my dear friends, in radio and TV talk about this massively successful Middle East trip by the administration. Well, why was it massively successful? And I don't necessarily disagree. I want to get our terms straight. Because of all the deals we made with Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and what we did with Syria helps to keep China and Russia out of the area. This is what I'm hearing. It's what they're saying on TV and radio. So it's a new foreign policy. It's a brilliant foreign policy. It's also a globalist foreign policy. A globalist foreign policy isn't a foreign policy that you disagree with that involves other countries. A globalist foreign policy can be a foreign policy that you agree with that involves other countries. So our globalist reach in the Middle East is like never before. You can't praise it and distance yourself from it at the same time. So what you saw and what you see, the good, bad, and the ugly, whether you support it or don't, is globalism. Globalism. It's what you see. I mean, if you're really not a globalist, you wouldn't give a damn about what goes on in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Syria, or pretty much any other place, right? Right. Now, what's an interventionist? Well, interventionism and globalism aren't exactly alike, but they certainly overlap. What does it mean to be an interventionist? Does that mean just militarily? No, they don't say military interventionist, they say interventionist. So what's an interventionist? Well, if we're trying to bring together Ukraine and Russia, and I don't mean bring them together, in a kumbaya moment, I mean bring them together to end their war, that's an interventionist policy, which is a good policy to try and bring peace if you can, right? But that's interventionism. But we don't mean that. But that's interventionism. Negotiating with Iran. Negotiating with Iran is interventionism. Is interventionism. Now, what's a warmonger? We bombed Yemen. We bombed the hell out of Yemen. In fact, we celebrated it, and we're so happy about it because they said, look, we're not going to attack American ships anymore, but Israel's fair game. And we said, okay, Israel's fair game, but don't attack us. But we attacked them. We dropped an enormous tonnage of bombs on them. Bombs dropping everywhere. Is that a warmonger? I'm just curious. I want to get my terms straight. I don't understand them. I'm perplexed. Perplexed. Is that a warmonger? So if Israel's attacked on October 7th by Hamas that's funded by Qatar and attacked by Hezbollah that's also funded by Iran as Hamas is funded by Iran, and they react to defend the society, to defend their people, are they warmongers? Are they? If somebody like me, and the vast majority of the American people, 80% of them, so all these guys, the founders were wrong. That's like 10% of the American people. The vast majority of the American people think Israel should kick the crap out of these terrorists. Even with all the lies from the media about what Israel's doing to the children in Gaza when it's Hamas doing it to the children in Gaza, the American people see through this. They don't side with terrorists against a democracy, and they never will. We never will. So is Netanyahu a warmonger? How so? He says, I got to defeat Hamas. We can't do this anymore. It's been going on for 20 years, no more. We've gone the way that the United States has insisted, the way the UN has insisted, the European Union has insisted. Get it over with already. Have a ceasefire. Don't you care about the hostages? Don't you think Israel and its elected government knows best what's for Israel? How many people say, we know what's best for America? Okay, it's true. And they know what's best for Israel. But I want to get my terms straight. Is bombing Yemen a warmonger act, and yet trying to destroy Hamas that literally slaughtered your people and promises to do it again? Is that the act of a warmonger? Now let's go to Iran. Iran clearly is building nuclear weapons. Under our system of government, Donald Trump will be president for less than another 4 years. Then he's out. We don't know who's going to replace him, which party. We have no idea. Then he's out. But the Iranians are still going to be there. They don't have elections. And they're still going to have the capacity to make nuclear weapons. And even if Trump negotiates the greatest deal of all deals, the most beautiful deal of all, he will be leaving. But Iran will not. And Israel will still be there. So I'm reading here in Axios, whoever keeps leaking to Axios in the administration, there needs to be a criminal investigation by the FBI, the National Security Council, overseen by the Department of Justice. Somebody is leaking negotiation information to a left-wing Barak Ravid who hates Netanyahu. He is a radical leftist. The Biden administration used him as a mouthpiece too. Somebody senior is undermining President Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, and this entire arrangement. And they need to be found out, and they need to go to prison. But this whole thing is about telling Netanyahu what he can do, what he can't do, just like Biden. What he must do, what he must not do. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, whoa. Isn't that a globalist interventionist position? And let's stop fooling ourselves. Let's stop pretending. Let's stop. We're not going to bomb Iran. Not unless this deal completely craters. And it's clearly not, because the president has said they're close to a deal. And now the administration is threatening Netanyahu. They sent Kristi Noem over there to threaten Netanyahu. So they're threatening Netanyahu. You better not screw this up, boy. You better not screw it up. Boy, we're telling you. Pretty much what I'm reading here from these leaks. So there's tiny Israel that's actually defeated Hezbollah, is defeating Hamas, has effectively destroyed Iran's surface-to-air missile system so it can attack these nuclear sites, being told, no, you're not. Because Tucker and his friends say you shouldn't. And so you won't. So who's the interventionist here? Who's the globalist? Now let's talk about democracies. Qatar is an inbred monarchy. Brutal regime. Saudi Arabia, same thing. Both of them have attacked us and killed American citizens. Syria is now run by a former al-Qaeda terrorist. He's the latest shiny object. And so we embrace him. All this being done without even consulting the state of Israel, our ally that lives in the neighborhood. That lives in our neighborhood. But don't worry, we're against globalism and interventionism and all the rest of it. Now let's deal with this word nationalism. We're all nationalists, right? That's a cool thing, right? What does it mean? America first. America first. Good. So what's nationalism mean to Israel? Doesn't it mean Israel first? So nationalism is okay for us, but it's not okay for our allies. Does that make sense to anybody? And then I have people who comment on my site who are horrific anti-Semites. I think a lot of them are foreign government trolls, but just disgusting. And so we don't read them anymore. But they say, look, Israel's a client state. Take it or leave it. Israel's a client state? They have elections. They have a democracy, a parliamentary democracy. It's a client state. So we own the Jews in Israel? Talk about globalism. First of all, that's outrageous. That cuts against everything we believe in this country about the Declaration, our founding, the consent of the governed, and our own sovereignty. If we expect our own sovereignty to be respected, we have to respect the sovereignty of others. But this is the kind of mindset that I hear, that I read, that I see. Pretty sick, don't you think? So Israel has to surrender its sovereignty, its nationalism, accept globalism and interventionism. And everything will be fine. The Qataris will be happy, the Saudis will be happy, the Syrians will be happy, and the Iranians, they'll wait us out, and then, wow, just like North Korea. All of a sudden, one day they say, look at our big shiny object. It's a nuclear missile. After we removed all of our nuclear warheads from South Korea as part of a deal with North Korea. Wow. How did that happen in Republican and Democrat administrations? They promised us North Korea would never have nuclear weapons. We had presidents who subsidized that regime. We had presidents who threatened that regime. We have so many agreements, if you go look online, I can't even count them. And we actually removed our nuclear warheads, our nuclear missiles, intermediate missiles, from the peninsula because North Korea promised us they wouldn't build nuclear weapons. But they did. Ukraine gave up its nuclear missiles. 1994, the worst thing it could ever have done. But we promised them. Clinton, the Russians, the British, give up your nuclear missiles. We don't want nuclear proliferation. We promise you we will protect you if you're attacked. That's the deal. 1994. And the hate on now for Ukraine and Zelensky is unbelievable. They were attacked. They didn't do anything to anybody. They're not aiming nuclear missiles at us. Russia is. Wow. But he's crooked. He's a this. He's a Nazi. He's a... Got it. I'm making some of you uncomfortable. Not the vast majority of you. Some of you. I'm sorry. But that's on you. That's not on me. This is called common sense. And no media, I'm not attacking the president. I'm not attacking the vice president. I'm not attacking anybody. This is called America, where we have these discussions, we have debates, we throw ideas out, people either embrace them or they reject them. That's a great thing. That's a great thing. It is a vigorous discussion and debate in real time addressing current events. It's what it is. And that's why conservative talk radio, serious talk radio hosts are successful. That's why this genre is successful. Because of the Rush Limbaughs, because of the Sean Hannitys, because in the past the great Bob Grants and other, and me, may I add. If you want Rockettes, they're there. They'll dance from one end of the stage to the other. Beautiful. It's beautiful. They're synchronized. It's unbelievable. But true conservatism, constitutionalism, conservative talk radio, we're not Rockettes. We're not Mediaite that runs the Democrat left-wing line day in and day out. We're not the corrupt Drudge Report that does the same thing. We're not CNN and MSNBC and the Slimes and the Compost and the rest. The truly good, that is great talk show hosts, whether they're on TV or radio, think for themselves and convey their thoughts to you so you can make up your own mind. It's not about team sports. It's not about burping up propaganda. It's about what I do on this program every damn day.
Mark Levin.
You're listening to the best of Mark Levin.
I think it's fair to say that no military action will be taken against Iran. It's probably fair to say that that's been the position for weeks and weeks, despite the threats. And so we're going to have an agreement of sorts, and we shall see if this is an ironclad agreement. But just to make it clear where I stand, I don't think anything short of taking out their nuclear sites, and that would include their centrifuges, is going to stop them in the long run, even in the mid-run, from getting a nuclear weapon. I look at North Korea, and that's what I see. Just my opinion. And it's going to be left probably to another generation to deal with it, and the consequences will be much more difficult, because Iran is on its back right now. It's economically on its back. Its ground-to-air missile system is almost non-existent, thanks to what the Israelis did to them, 9 months ago. Those systems will be rebuilt with the most modern ground-to-air missile systems that that Russia has, and they have a very, very good system. And, of course, if we take the sanctions off, which is likely part of some deal, then all this money will flow into Iran, and they'll be able to rebuild whatever has been destroyed, whatever progress has been made, and we're off to the races. So we shall see. I'm just reading the tea leaves like the rest of you. I'm reading the reports that are coming out, the unauthorized leaks to Axios coming out of the administration that undermine the president and the prime minister. Somebody's doing something. But this is what I see. Moreover, I want to repeat what I've been saying, and I'm the one who started this point because it's important as a constitutionalist, that whatever does come out of this negotiation must go to Congress. It should be treated as a treaty, because that's what it is. If it's not a treaty, then when do we ever have a treaty? On matters of nuclear war, life and death, dealing with an enemy state, that's exactly the kind of thing that needs to be treated as a treaty. And the vast majority of Republicans took that position with Obama's deal. They eventually caved, and they had an executive agreement, as they call it, which is not in the Constitution. I don't care if presidents have done it or not. It's not in the Constitution. But even there, that permitted both houses of Congress, the House and the Senate, to participate in the process. There's no way that this can just be rammed through, even if it's the greatest agreement of any agreement that's ever been negotiated by anybody on the face of the earth. We have a constitutional construct. So that will have to be dealt with. And I would encourage those involved, they should start bringing the Senate into this. They should start bringing Senate leaders into this, committee chairmen into this, so we're not left with, well, it's imminent, we have to hurry up, we have to do this, we have to do that. I'm just giving my take on these things. I think that's very, very important. But I do think, whether it is during the Trump administration or subsequent to the Trump administration, that one day the Iranians will announce that they have a nuclear weapon. And then it's going to be extraordinarily difficult for us to deal with it, Israel to deal with it. And you're going to have a proliferation situation in the Middle East. That's the way I see this. Time will tell. It doesn't matter if I'm shouted down by the sloganeers with the warmonger stuff and the neocon stuff or the phony headlines and all that. It doesn't matter. I'm communicating to you, me and you, the American people, Mr. and Mrs. America. When you look at Iran, Iran has been committed to this. Iran has spent a fortune on this. The leaders of Iran want to destroy Israel. They want to destroy the United States and the West. There's really only one way to do it, and that's with a nuclear weapon. It's going to change everything. It's going to change everything. Maybe I'll be dead and gone, and many of you will, and in the administration, many of the people involved in this might be gone, and prior administrations, they'll be gone, but we do have children and grandchildren, and so I pray to God that we're not ushering something in that we can't put back in the box. As I've explained before, we're not talking about communists in this regard or fascists in this regard, where mutual assured destruction actually works. Somebody picked up on this point, and I raised it a month ago on Fox. the Islamist Nazis, the Islamo-Nazis, they're not interested. They don't care about mutual assured destruction. It's fine by them. They live now for the next life. That's what they live for. And they believe God, maybe it's their God, is telling them to do these things. And we've talked about this, and in my new book on power, I write about this, and this should concern everybody. So we'll see. We shall see what it looks like. We have enough experts, enough people who know what a great deal looks like and a great deal doesn't. We know the key is centrifuges, and we know the key is not whether the centrifuges are spinning under the nuclear level or not, because they can be raised really in a moment's notice effectively, but whether they have centrifuges at all. I don't care if it's under the watchful eye of the United States or the European Union or whatever it is. We don't know where everything is. They know where everything is. And I don't think that they're going to reveal everything to us. We're the enemy, after all. So I wanted to lay that out, which I have. And then I want to move on. I want to move on to AOC. AOC pretty much gets a free pass by the American media. Pretty much gets a free pass. She says many stupid things. She has many stupid positions, extraordinarily dangerous positions. She was part of that defund the police stuff, part of the open borders, decriminalization, Hamas mouthpiece. And over at our Breitbart, our friends over there, John Binder, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calls to abolish ICE in latest campaign pitch. Folks, they effectively did that under Biden. Whomever they are, they effectively did it under Biden. We can't afford another round of this. They write, Cortez, a potential Democrat presidential primary candidate, is again calling for the abolitionment of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, which enforces the nation's immigration laws. Again and again, this is revolution by immigration to change the entire makeup of the United States. I'm not talking about the complexion, the makeup, the substantive makeup of the United States. Bringing in people from all parts of the world, not assimilating into the American culture, but to destroy the American culture. You see some of the entrails of this on our college campuses right now, individuals coming to this country from the Middle East, from countries that the cultures are completely contrary to ours. Their governments are enemy governments. They're certainly not friends. And you see the consequence. Cortez won her congressional race in 2018, partly on a platform that promised to dismantle and ultimately abolish ICE. She eventually dropped the abolish ICE talking point from her stump speech if the polls found that even a majority of Democrats didn't want the federal agency to be wiped out. So in a new campaign email, just as AOC sets herself up as the new face of the Democrat Party heading into the 2027 presidential primary, the self-described Democratic socialist is again resurfacing calls to abolish ICE. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter where she is in the polls, if she's leading in the, none of that matters. Once you get into the debates, if there's enough Democrats running, she will be exposed. And she will be exposed as basically somebody who has a long list of bumper sticker statements and substantively is quite hollow. She is a media creation from the moment she won the Republican primary. She won the Republican primary against a white Irish male politician who'd represented that district for 20 years, and the media went nuts because she's obviously not white, not Irish, and not male. They thought it was very, very cool. And so they've been promoting her ever since. They don't get into the substance with her, just like they don't get into the substance with Tlaib or Omar or Bernie Sanders, for that matter. These are crazy-ass people who hate this country. Abolishing ICE would set free over 1 million illegal aliens, many of whom are violent felons. But this is what she'd like to do. From immigration detention, while eliminating the federal government's enforcement arm that locates, arrests, and deports many of the nation's 11 to 22 million illegal aliens. Now, you see the kind of people the Trump administration are rounding up. These are violent, vile, horrific individuals for the most part. Horrific. Who've done horrible things in our country. they'd be out on the streets. Earlier this month, border czar Tom Homan suggested he was in talks with the Department of Justice over AOC's insistence to continuously give illegal aliens advice on how to evade ICE agents. I would be shocked if they actually charge her, even though she should be charged. I would be shocked. What she's doing, she says she's educating everybody of their constitutional rights. That's not what she's doing. And by the way, if you're here on a visa, and there are many kinds of visas. My wife has taught me this. She used to practice this area of the law as well as many others. Really good, smart lawyer. There are conditions, and she's explained to me, you have to sign on, and you have to meet the requirements of this visa in your application. And there's a number of requirements. And it includes, behavior that is not contrary to the interests of the United States. So you have all these people who have blogs, who write or go on the internet, talking about a right to free speech. When you come into this country and you sign these forms, you have a very limited right to free speech. You're here to be a student. You're here to be an entertainer. You're here to be a farm worker. You're here to be whatever you are. And then you're supposed to leave. These are temporary. Visas are temporary. Temporary. They're not permanent. You don't have a right to be here permanently. None. Unless you change your status. But that's AOC now. Abolish ICE.
Mark Levin.
The Great One makes your weekend even better. This is the best of Mark Levin.
This is stunning. It is shocking. Federal Trade Court. The Federal Trade Court. It's not even an Article 2 court. The Federal 3 Court. The Federal Trade Court blocks Trump from imposing sweeping tariffs under emergency powers law. The Associated Press. A Federal Trade Court today blocked President Trump from imposing sweeping tariffs on imports under an emergency powers law. The ruling from a 3-judge panel at the New York-based Court of International Trade came after several lawsuits arguing Trump has exceeded his authority, left U.S. trade policy dependent on his whims, and unleashed economic chaos. The worldwide and retaliatory trade orders exceed any authority granted to the president by IEEPA to regulate importation by means of tariffs, the court wrote. That's a 1977 International Emergency Economic Powers Act. The White House has not immediately responded. The Trump administration is expected to appeal. You think? At least 7 lawsuits are challenging the levies, the centerpiece of Trump's trade policy. The plaintiffs argued, and so all you'll hear is what the plaintiffs argued, the plaintiffs argued, the plaintiffs argued. The emergency powers laws does not authorize the use of tariffs, and even if it did, the trade deficit does not meet the law's requirement, and it goes on. His administration argues that courts, that is Trump, approved then-President Richard Nixon's emergency use of tariffs in 1971, and that only Congress and not the courts, only Congress, can determine a political question of whether the president's rationale for declaring an emergency complies with the law. Ladies and gentlemen, as of tonight, the United States of America is no longer a constitutional republic. We've already been in a period of post-constitutional Americanism, as I've said for some time. But tonight locks the door. We live in a judicial tyranny, and not just any judicial tyranny, a judicial tyranny of the Democrat Party's making. There's no aspect of executive branch administrative powers, whether it's trade, whether it's immigration, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's the content of computers, whether it's hiring or firing or access to data in the executive branch. There's no aspect of executive powers under our Constitution that hasn't been seized since the election of Donald Trump by a cabal of rogue Democrat Party judges. I am not overstating the case. In fact, I'm understating the case. The abuse of power through national injunctions and so-called temporary restraining orders. The threat of contempt citations against the executive branch that's doing what the executive branch is supposed to do. The judiciary now controls public policy. That includes economic policy, immigration policy. It includes national security issues. It has given standing to anybody who brings a lawsuit, so it can get involved in every damn issue it seeks to get involved in. This isn't even a real court, to be perfectly honest with you. This isn't the kind of court. It's not a federal district court. It's not an appellate court. Clearly, it's not the Supreme Court. A 3-judge panel of the New York-based Court of International Trade. Court of International Trade? 3-judge panel? Just completely destroyed the entire tariff program of President Donald Trump. What must these other countries think of us? They're hollowing out the power of the presidency. It's not Trump taking powers he doesn't have. It's not Trump exercising powers he doesn't have. There's no way in hell that a constitution that empowers such entities would ever have been drafted, let alone adopted and ratified by the states. No damn way. You now live in a judicial tyranny. It's official. And those who support a judicial tyranny, as in the state of Israel, are on the radical left because they've never really believed in representative government. They've never really believed in the consent of the governed. And by the way, chapter and verse in my new book on power. That's not why I'm mentioning it. I'm mentioning it because they happen to address each other. The book happens to address what's taking place presciently, I might add. So this is what we have. Separation of powers. Power seized by unelected judges who will hold you in contempt if you don't comply with what they say, who have decided, according to the Chief Justice of the United States, that has helped unleash this roguery on the nation, who has said that we have the final say. Justice Barrett, when Solicitor Sauer is arguing his case, he said, well, there are occasions when, the courts are wrong. She was stunned. No, there aren't. You follow the order of a court no matter what. So now the law is the law because the courts say so, not because it's constitutionally based.
Mark Levin.
We're giving you nothing but the best of Mark Levin.
I want to talk about judiciary. I want to really lay into this because we actually have some libertarians and unfortunately some conservatives who have the mindset that what this court did, this United States Court on Trade in New York, which is a legitimate court, it's a federal court, it's created by Congress, it has 9 members, I looked into it, they're appointed for life. Life, I don't know why they're appointed for life on that court, but they are. But they have a tremendous amount of authority. But the president gets his authority from the Constitution. They do not. This goes to the heart of the matter. This goes to the heart of the matter that we've been talking about with the judiciary, my new book on power, goes to the heart of the matter. Who has the final say if there's a dispute? Now, we've been brainwashed to believe, every law student is brainwashed to believe, and hence virtually every lawyer, whether they're TV lawyers or practicing lawyers or whatever kind of lawyers they are, has been taught to believe that the court has the final say. And the Supreme Court has the final of all final sayings. That's not what your Constitution says. In fact, your Constitution doesn't say anything about it. That's not what the Federalist Papers say. The Federalist Papers say really the opposite. The weakest branch, Hamilton said. They won't have a military, like the executive branch, and they won't have the power to tax, like the legislative branch. And so basically, it's the good faith of the other branches and the American people, the basis for the power of the courts. The Chief Justice of the United States, and that's the official title in the Constitution, the Chief Justice of the United States on the Supreme Court, said something extraordinary the other day when he said the court has the final say. Now, again, if you go to law school, you'll hear that. If you're listening to these slip and fall lawyers, some of whom are former federal prosecutors, some of whom are professors, they'll say exactly the same thing. Some of our friends will say exactly the same thing. That's not what the Constitution says. In 1803, the Marbury versus Madison decision, where Chief Justice Marshall seized power that was not granted to the court in the Constitution. I've told you many times about a man who I've had tremendous, I'm trying to find it here, hold on. No, tremendous respect for. There's not a lot. There's people I appreciate, who I like, and so tremendous respect for his intellect, for his scholarship, for his objectivity and honesty. And that was the late Professor Raoul Berger. This man was a genius. He was never a lawyer, by the way, but he was a constitutionalist. He was friends with Bob Bork, among others. But he wasn't much interested in Supreme Court precedent. He was more interested in the Constitution. Each and every framer, what they said during the Constitutional Convention. He was much more interested in the state ratification conventions and the leaders in those various state conventions and what they had to say. And there are writings available, just like Madison's notes. Not all of them, but 9 of the conventions kept pretty good notes. How do I know? Because I read them. There's not another talk show host in America that's read those, but I read them. There's probably not another talk show host in America that read the Anti-Federalist Papers, which are very persuasive, by the way. In no case did anybody say the court would have the final say, let alone lower courts that they weren't even thinking about, because they hadn't been created. In fact, in the Anti-Federalist Papers, one of the most prominent anti-federalists turned out to be the governor of New York. He was worried about the courts. He said, I'm very worried about this. There's really no description about the Supreme Court. I mean, outside of very, very bare details, if you can call them details at all, the kind of power this court's going to have. So it will create its own power base. Again, you'll read about this in my new book. But that said, I'm going to deal with it now. Turned out he was right. So just use common sense, folks. This is a great country because it's a republic. Not because we have lifetime appointed judges, but because it's a republic. It's a whole mosaic. At the top of the mosaic, you have the 3 branches of government. But below these 3 branches of the federal government, you have all the state governments. And you have legislatures and governors and judges within the state governments. Then you have townships and cities and villages, and they have their own governments and so forth. It's a mosaic. Now, there's 677 federal district judges. As of today, any single one of these judges, anyone, can rule against this president and put in place a national ban overturning his policy decisions. Anyone. Now, that would have been viewed as absolutely unacceptable to the framers of your Constitution and to the ratifiers in every single state. Why? Because it's tyranny. That's why. You voted in November. You voted for a president of the United States. He gets to make those kinds of decisions without courts looking over his shoulder. The courts have one job, according to Berger, according to them at the time. One job. One job. And that job is to make sure, they're traffic cops, that Congress is in its lane, the president's in its lane. It's not to usurp powers and to take them for yourself and substitute your decisions for them. Under no definition is that a Republican form of government. None. Under no definition is that a constitutional system. None. None. My first book was Men in Black, about the Supreme Court and the abuses of the judiciary. Look, we've come full circle. My latest book on power gets into this. I'm telling you right now. So here we have this trade court that is ruled because they had, I believe it was 5 petitioners, all with the same ideology, some of them supported by radical libertarians, other of them were business groups. They didn't want the tariffs, and so they said this president doesn't have the power to issue tariffs the way he's issuing tariffs under federal law. That was passed in 1977. I went back and I looked at that act. See what I'll do for you? But I'm also curious on my own. Seriously. Certain emergency powers, but they say they've never been used this way before by a president. Well, the nature of emergency powers is that they're not used very often, are they? No. There's nothing that prevents this. But let's say there is. Or better, more to the point, let's say you think there is. Who gets to decide? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Producer, is Congress in session? Yes, Congress is in session. We still have a Congress, right? So Congress has the power then, because it wrote the law in the first place, to change the law and say, that's not what we meant. He's taken too much power. And they haven't even taken it up. So why is this trade court saying, you violated this statute, Mr. President, you don't have this power? And the president says, not only do I have the emergency power under the statute, I have those powers, period, as the president of the United States, under Article 2. Now, you may disagree with him. So Congress is the place to resolve it, not some trade court or any court for that matter. Now, to her credit, and I don't normally watch these, this Caroline Leavitt, she is a smart young lady. Smart. Because she mentioned that Congress, the play here is in Congress. Congress. If they have a problem with what's happening to their statute, Congress is the one to address it. Not the judiciary, not the trade court. And she's 100% correct. So for those who go online and say, geez, I thought you were a constitutionalist. Gee, I thought you were against tariffs. It's not whether I'm for or against tariffs. We're talking about who gets to make the final decision. Now, if you listen to John Roberts, he does. The problem with his position is it's not based on any constitutional language, any statement from any framer, any statement from any state legislature that ratified the convention. The court grabbed power for itself, and John Roberts is not willing to give it up. But the proper place for this is Congress. Congress is there. Well, they don't have the votes. So what? If they don't have the votes, they don't get to change it. That's the way it works. If the court doesn't have the votes on an issue that belongs in the court, they don't get to change it either. It's not result-oriented. Where does the decision belong? With Congress. Just like I tell you about the treaty clause. Congress. Now, Congress exercises a lot of power it doesn't have. Again, you'll find this in my new book. But Congress exercises a lot of power it doesn't have, too. Congress isn't supposed to be a national legislature that legislates on anything that comes to somebody's mind. You know, we need to fix this. We need a law for this. And we need to... That was never the intent. The state legislatures, that's where the action was. Congress has a lane, too. The president has a lane, too. They all have a lane. When it applies to the federal government, they have a lot of power. But when it comes to society generally, they're not supposed to. Congress is only supposed to pass laws that execute or institute or address matters that are purely federal. And if there's a dispute between a state and federal law, the federal law trumps, because there can be an overlap. The line of demarcation may not be that clear. But for instance, nationalizing healthcare. Healthcare is a private matter. It's mostly a state matter. Really, under our Constitution, they don't have the power to do that. Now, don't get me wrong. There's not a court in the world that'll agree with me. Why? Because we're too far gone. I'm just being honest. That's why when America's governor, Ron DeSantis, was on this program earlier this week, he talked about Convention of States. You know, that's close to my heart. Mark Meckler and the guys and his wonderful wife, Convention of States. That's the only way we're going to be able to fix this as a fundamental matter, as a constitutional matter. That's it. There's no other way. Because Congress isn't going to fix itself. The Supreme Court's not going to fix itself. But if I were writing my book again, the Liberty Amendments, I would add one more, and it would be with the courts, and I already have one in there with the courts, but I'd add another one. To basically roping the courts off from the sort of things they're doing today. Now, there is an appellate court that stayed, held in place, the tariffs while this matter is litigated, an appeals court, federal appeals court, which was a great move by them, while the matter is being decided through the judicial system. So the tariffs remain in place. The ultimate judicial decision, of course, we don't have yet. This is a time when we need serious men and women on the Supreme Court, and I fear we only have about 4. The next massive political movement, if the Supreme Court does not stop what these lower courts are doing, and quickly, I'm going to lead a movement to pressure Congress to make the lower courts, to remake them. It'll take time, but it must be done. And under our Constitution, which any critic who will write about this now does not comprehend, we have every right as the people of this country to press our elected representatives to uphold the Constitution and give us our republic back. The lower courts are violating separation of powers, seizing authority they do not have, and have become populated with rogue lawyers, activists. The Constitution empowers we, the people, and through us, our representatives, to fix this. Now, we help launch the Convention of States movement right here. We will bring millions together to address this. Again, it won't happen overnight. Hold on, I'm going to post this. But if this continues, it will happen. After all, it really isn't about our president, right? It is about our republic and our Constitution. And that's the truth. I'm going to post this. It's not a threat. I mean this with every fiber of my body. Look, we've been responsible for a lot of actions here. The Convention of States, Mark Meckler and I, no question about it. The Tea Party movement, spontaneous plus on this radio show. Honestly, the opposition to so-called immigration reform under George Bush, we led that charge right here behind this microphone. We led that charge right here. Our involvement in crucial primaries, not just for president, but Senate and House. We have a pretty good record. We can't win them all, but we win a lot of them. Ask Ted Cruz, ask Marco Rubio, ask Mike Lee with his convention. Even ask Rand Paul, unfortunately, but nonetheless. And there are others. We win some, we lose some. We win more than we lose. But I cannot sit here as somebody who has studied the Constitution literally since I'm 13, 14 years old. Used to go to the Independence Hall where the First and Second Continental Congresses met, the Second Continental Congress. Wrote the Declaration of Independence where the Constitutional Convention was in that very hot, humid summer in Philadelphia. My buddy Eric Christensen and I used to walk there, study there, even question the rangers there who were like amazed. How much do you know? For years, I had an original copy of a book of the Federalist Papers that were put together, paid for by Hamilton, and he almost went broke. There were 500 of them. He spread about 125 of them in Virginia, because Virginia was a close call, and the rest he used in New York. And I used to keep it on my desk, and then one day I said, it's not really fair. It sits here and I look at it and the family looks at it, so I donated it to Hillsdale College in Washington. This is in my blood. This is who I am. Some people are great surgeons. Some people are great beauticians. Some people are great plumbers. This is what I do. This is who I am. And I'll be damned if I'm going to sit here and watch some judge, some nameless, faceless judge who happened to work their way through the Senate run this country. I'm not kidding. There's a legitimate role for the judiciary. There's no question about it. This is not that. This is not that. And so we will leave it a movement here. We're going to watch the Supreme Court over the course of the next few weeks as their term ends and into next year. We're going to watch. We're going to put pressure on the House, controlled by the Republicans, the Senate, controlled by Republicans, because this cannot stand, America. This just cannot stand.